Hi internet, I'm here today to talk to you about the dangers of scissors in quarantine. I'm kidding, although I did cut my hair off on Easter weekend, but that's beside the point because you don't know I haven't posted a video in probably a year. I made them, I haven't posted them, and then I didn't edit them, and now I'm just deleting the footage because it's useless to me. And I'm actually here, hence an NaNoWriMo shirt, to talk about writing because that's what I have been doing this year that I did not do last year, which is why I did not make many videos last year. Would you like the excuses for why I hardly wrote last year? The first excuse, I moved in May. Also, I started sewing and started a sewing channel with my mom, so that took up a lot of my time, and I'm still sewing, hence the sewing room and the sewing machine behind me. But right now I'm writing. Oh, they're my two favorite hobbies to do, but it's so hard to do them both like full force at the same time. Thankfully, sewing helps like free up my mind so that when I'm overwriting, I can sew, and it's the same like creative outlet, putting things together, creating stuff from a vision, that's all great. Until I get frustrated with it, and now I have a sewing room with a multitude of projects on it that need to be finished that haven't been finished. Which is the same as my computer that has a multitude of projects on it that need to be finished and haven't been finished, but I'm getting there, especially this year. I moved twice last year because I moved out of my home that we lived in for like nearly 10 years with my parents, and then we moved into a place for 6 months, but like it wasn't the right fit. And then the room that I had set up for my like computer and for my sewing just, I don't know, it didn't lead itself to me creating anything. I don't know what it was. I didn't like that room, just it's something with the vibe, which sounds stupid, but when it comes to creative projects, if you don't like something about a room and it just happens to be the entirety of the room's energy, sometimes that weighs on you. I continued writing through January, little bits here and there, February, March. I failed Nano. I think I was gonna do camp and then I didn't do camp because of the room. It was just a wash of a year. The only good thing that came out of that is that my NaNoWriMo novel from 2018, I completed. It was a 0 death draft, as I have now realized it is, from one character's perspective. And then in, I think, January, I decided to make it 2 characters. I had this princess that I brought in and pretty much killed off straight away. She didn't really have any plot stuff, but then I was thinking about her and her life, and I wanted to do more with her, and I was like, well, maybe she can be a bit of an antagonist. I'm like, but what if she teams up with my main character? And now I have 2 POV characters, technically both princesses. One doesn't have a crown, and the other, well, at the point that I'm writing, I'm not giving you spoilers. I will, I'll give you so many spoilers. So Freya is my original character. She's the original POV. If I talk about like my main character or my main POV or anything like that, I'm referring to her. They have a very split even share of the book. It's concentrated on both of them apart from this last draft for half of it. And because she was my first, I keep like deferring to her as a main when I talk about my story, but she's not. She is my favorite baby, but I also love Tamana. I have issues with Tamana, but that's just because she is 17. Oh, 17 again. I am so happy I'm not there. When I completed the 0 draft, I wrote the entire thing up till the midpoint, so halfway through Act 2. And then there is a lot of scenes, it turns out, weren't written, I think 1 or 2 before the midpoint and after the midpoint. Some things were written, I got the vibe, I plotted it out for Freya, not extraordinarily well. I had scenes in mind and things that I wanted to do that I did, that I still love, but now I need to change. And a lot of moving from the midpoint to the end point wasn't written. Even the final battle, I know the final battle, I know what happened the entire time, but for some reason I didn't actually write it. I wrote the final climax and the ending that I've kind of changed a little bit. There's something about me with 0 drafting I've realized, because there's a few NaNoWriMos now where I've finished a draft. I get really into the introduction of the world, introducing the problem, introducing how we're going to get through this problem, and then at the end, how we resolve the problem, but in between gets fuzzy. I think that's because I'm a pantser. I now am more of a plantser, which I can talk about in another video how I went from pantser to plantser, but the main difference is I will start writing by the seat of my pants every time. There is no other way to do it. That's how you do it. And then after I get like a feel for everything and everyone, I might start plotting, or I'll at least have my beats of certain things. By the time I get 2 chapters in, generally I know like my inciting incident, I know the break into 2, midpoint, sometimes a break into 3, and then the ending. And they're the things that I work with. I have ideas about where I want the character to go from there, and I've learnt to write it down. For a long time, a few years now I think, I've been using Catty-tastic's 3 act, 9 block, 27 chapter plotting structure. I love it. It is my favorite thing because it makes sense to me. I haven't looked into Save the Cat. I don't want to look into Save the Cat. I could. Any time I've tried, I just lose interest. One day I will. One day I'll be like, the structure isn't working for me, and I'll change it. But I also don't stick religiously to it. Like, I've written enough things for fun and in this world that I've plotted and worked out and read enough that I know like essentially how a story is meant to go. You have your beginning, middle, end. You need to have a beginning, middle, and end for each act, generally each block, and every chapter. It can change what those beginning, middles, and end all accomplish, but it's how you keep the reader going, it's how you keep it moving. You can delay things and do all that stuff, but you kind of want to just have your beginning, middle, end, always have something changing, something happening, something propelling the plot forward. And that is what I have been working on. I wrote and plotted thoroughly a lot of Act 1. So Act 1 is pretty neat. I finished it off this year, and I've gone through and I've edited it once already, which I will talk about because I feel very insecure about the fact that I'm already editing this story. But there's been a couple of things that I've struggled with in 2019 that stopped me from writing, and then because now I'm just writing and vomiting it out and then going back and fixing everything later, like you should with writing, because that's what a 0 draft or a draft 1 is getting it all out and then fixing it with all your revisions and edits. I've gotten more comfortable with the idea of doing that, like it doesn't have to be right, it doesn't have to be perfect, but because I had a 0 draft for Freya and not Tamana, I was like writing the first draft for Freya and the 0 draft for Tamana, and it never felt right, and I kept restarting, which is an issue that I have because I'm a pantser and because I fell in love with this idea of J.R. Tolkien at one stage where he constantly went back and rewrote Lord of the Rings from the start. Don't do it. If you're a perfectionist, maybe you can edit as you go and change stuff that way. It's not a good idea, as anyone has ever said when it comes to writing advice. Some people can get away with editing as they go, but generally learning, you should just finish things and then edit later, and then you know what to look for. And if you like editing as you go after that, that's fine, but it is a hole for me, and it is not something I am permitted to do anymore, and I don't really let myself do it on 0 drafts. The rest of the drafts can kind of have it a little bit. I had like 3 or 4 revisions for the first couple of chapters of Tamana, and I've had about the same for Freya, because I've just been like cleaning it up and changing it all. It's changed a lot from when I originally wrote it. This is the book that I first started writing it in when I'd been sitting on the idea for I think like 2 months after hearing Burn It Down by Linkin Park. I like listened to that song and I was like, but what if? And then I had a friend explain to me the video game or movie that it's behind, and I was like, I want this more. And this was written on the 11th of January 2016, so I'm only 4 years in. So far this year, I have an Excel document with all my writing stats in it for this year, which I have in front of me right here on my precious phone. And I'm going to tell you the absolute chaos I have been causing myself. Most of these words have been for the story, and then I was going to do the novella because the events before this book for Freya could be its own story, and I'm really interested in telling that. I also like to write down the scenes from earlier in her life because I like to draw back on that. And I don't know if it's something that I would like write the prequel and publish it if I got the first one published, or if it's just a me thing, or if I'm even going to get it published. But I like it, and I want to occasionally add things to it. I've thought about it that much that I went looking for a scene the other week. Couldn't find it anywhere. I'm positive I wrote it. No, I didn't. I just thought about it real hard. Really hard, apparently. I think about a lot of scenes really hard. But a lot of this did go into the story and a lot of it didn't, because I let myself write fan fiction now. I have found throughout the years that if I get a scene stuck in my head that I really want to write but it doesn't fit in the story and I don't write it, it's going to find its way into the story and ruin everything. And it's just not a good idea ever. It has never proven to be a good idea. So instead I have these fan fiction scenes that I'll write in my Scrivener document and count towards my word count, because to me it's like character development and working out backstory and relationships and stuff like that, and it does really help. Sometimes parts of those scenes do end up in the book, often they don't. There's one story where like someone lost a child and then I decided to write the fanfiction of, but what if she didn't? And torn which one I like more. I know which one I like more, the other one, yeah, but I like them both. And also I come from fanfiction, so why not do it with my own characters and my own story? It's fun. It's so much fun. I've written 238,600 words this year. Yeah, I know. I don't know how, apart from the fact that I am a chronic overwriter. I can just vomit words out forever if I really want to. So much fun. January, I started writing on the 13th, I believe, and I wrote 11 days out of that month. I got 13,043 words, which was a pretty decent effort. Like, I was impressed with that. And then in February, I worked for 26 days, so I only missed about 4 days of that month. And I hit 72,736 words. I wrote all of March, and that was 108,500 words. And so far in April with camp, I've written every day. I haven't recorded my word count for today, but I'm up to 44,321 words. Yeah, that averages out because in the spreadsheet, I think of a stat that I want and I just do the equation and have it go in. January, I averaged at 1,185 words. February, 2,797 words. March, 3,500 words. And so far in April, 2,607 words. Out of this entire time, my lowest number of words has been 8 in one day, and the most was 12,631. That was this month, and that was a ripper of a day. I think the 8 days was in February where I really wasn't feeling it, but every day I've been trying to sit down in the afternoon, like after work or at night, because I'm an essential worker, so I am still working every day, even work today, and it's that day. Just sit down, even if I don't feel like writing, and look at it, read it, and try to write. Sometimes that doesn't happen, sometimes it does. I'm pretty sure those 8 words might have been I had a lot of stuff happening that day, and I was just like, I need to keep up my words per day. I'm almost certain that's what it was, because I've had a couple of those days where I'm just like, I need to write something. Thankfully, we're now in quarantine, so I have had no plans come up. Because I'm an essential worker, and so is the other half, we kind of just self-quarantine at home, go to work, self-quarantine, you know, which is so much fun. Actually it is, it's like my ideal life. Like, why would I want to go out and see people? I'm an introvert, I'm a writer, Jesus, and he's a gamer, so it works out well. So that's how it's been looking. I've been working on this story. I did draft 1 throughout, I think I started in January. And my original goal was to have the final draft finished by the end of March. Well, it was my birthday, and then I went the end of March. And I think I went 2 days over. I think I went into the 2nd of April. But that's only because I kind of like got all seasy about it again. And then my plans were to take a break from it, maybe write the novella, and instead I'm editing it now. But I'll give that in a nano update, because this is gonna be long-winded, baby. I've got 3 months to cover and it's already long. So because my idea was just to finish it, not think about the words, just get it done, I believe I reread the first couple of chapters and then I kept writing. I think I was on chapter 4 out of 27, which, no, I wasn't up to chapter 4, because chapter 4 is that. I would have been up to chapter 3. I have a number of scenes in each chapter. Some chapters only have 1 scene, but because I've got the dual perspective and it's such a big story, letting myself have as many scenes as I like, and they do need to be edited down because I do have a lot of words, but we'll work that out one day. I ended up completing Act 1, pretty good. It was decent, Act 1. I went back and edited that recently. It's still really good. I'm happy with how Act 1 went. I wrote, I think, the first 2 chapters in Act 2, still writing Tamana's perspective, and then I went full Freya and I didn't write anything from Tamana's perspective for the rest of the novel for a few reasons. I didn't plot the rest of Tamana's story, I've realised. I haven't plotted Tamana at all apart from what happened in the castle, and that is an issue that I'm trying to fix now. Turns out plotting keeps me on track, and I know that, and I should have gone through and plotted it. When we first get into Act 2, we're in a new environment, we're in a new camp. I needed to get Freya's bearings throughout all of it. Now looking back, I need to get her bearings on all of that and where her story was going so I could work out what Tamana's struggles would have been in the camp. Also, she started to turn into a mini Freya and I couldn't have that. She can take some elements of her because they have been spending time together now, and there's things, they separate at the midpoint, which is why the last anything of her was at midpoint. I brought her back in the last couple of scenes. It's really similar to Freya's zero draft, so I'm viewing that as Tamana's zero draft and Freya's draft 1. And now I'm working on Freya's draft 2 and Tamana's draft 1. I do want to do a catch-up edit after this where I just work on Tamana, and originally if I was going to write anything this month for the story, it was going to be Tamana, but I realized I need to tidy everything up, especially for this first half of the block, because they're so intertwined. I need to work on them both at the same time, otherwise I am finding some messes. And for the rest of it, I will probably switch to Tamana after a bit, because there's some things that are really pressing that I need to fix on Freya, that I need to write Tamana so that I can get my pacing right. And I did go through, I wrote down like the sheet of the 3 blocks, 9 acts, 27 structure, what they all meant. I plotted what I've written for each of them, like what chapter, scene, number they are, and then put in Freya's stuff, like, okay, so this is her point, this is her point, this is her point, because I do need to fix Act 2 desperately. And I did the same for Tamana, because I have the ideas and I vaguely know what's going to happen to her, but it's kind of like coming more in, because I've realized the questions I should have been asking this whole time, and that's the issue. I would suggest if you ever decide to write a dual POV, plot them at the same time. Then they're all on the same draft. When they're on different drafts, you get seized up, and if you don't, I applaud you. You are fantastic, and I hope your words are more carefully chosen than mine, because I'm a mine. Some of them are great. I am actually really happy that I went back and read my writing, because it's made me realize my strengths and my weaknesses. My weaknesses being spelling and writing the word that I mean, but also some other things like vomiting on a page, occasional info dumping, trying the too much gene. That has been a struggle that I found in going back to this, the first 2 scenes of Tamana, and the reason that I have had such issues with writing her from there is that I had the too much gene and I put too much in the 2 scenes and covered too much ground and too much learning, that there was nothing else for her to learn while in the camp. And anything that she learned could have been discussed from Freya's perspective. Whereas now I have her, because there's magic involved, getting like a grip on her magic and starting to realize she's not crazy, magic's crazy. And now I can work from here on her, like learning it, kind of getting her footing, and then having it all destroyed completely and utterly. I've destroyed Freya a few times. I've only destroyed Tamana a couple, and she needs to be destroyed more. I need to ruin that girl and then build her back up. The ending's really ruining for her. Now that I know how I've written Freya's ending, she goes through some fun things, but I want to destroy and decimate Tamana. The other issue is Tamana is 17 and Freya is 26, 27 in this story. And because of that, I identify stronger with Freya than I do Tamana, but I do see, because they're on very similar story arcs and the way that they move throughout, this whole novel is very similar on coming into their own. Freya technically came into her own when she was younger, but she's finding herself again because of some things that have happened, because, that's how books work and stories work. And especially at the start, the most important thing to Tamana is, in my eyes, kind of stupid. But writing it, I absolutely love it. And then going back and editing, I'm like, oh, that's right, she's 17, and I really captured that, and 17 again. I don't want to be 17 again. Actually, could I have my 17-year-old body again? The fun part of this as well is I've realized a lot of things that like subconsciously at the start I put in with both their stories. It kind of like mirrors and works off each other. Like I almost see them now as they could have been the same person brought up in two different realities, but they're also not the same person. They're completely different and they have their own voices, and I've been working on that with the edits. I've just been trying to like work everything out, and like things that are one way for one are different for another, and that's really interesting to me. But yeah, my main struggle has been zero drafting Tamana while I'm first drafting Freya. And now I'm first drafting and second drafting. It's like so much fun and I'm actually really enjoying it. But it's also kind of tedious. One thing that I have thankfully done this entire time since I was 14 is have playlists for my stories. So I always have the music there that kind of like I draw inspiration from and I draw back to and have the feelings there, and I can choose certain songs if I'm like, okay, I need to write this heartbreaking scene, I need a song that sounds like this, I have it in the playlist, I already chose that song that goes for that scene, and I can just listen to that on repeat. But again, it's Freya's soundtrack and I'm trying to cultivate one for Tamana, and I realize in writing her more, I'm choosing a lot more soft sounding songs. Like my boyfriend and I have very similar song interests, but there are certain songs that I listen to that it doesn't have enough beat, it doesn't have enough energy for him. And I'm like, oh, it's so nice and soothing. And that's more Tamana's songs than Freya's, although some of them do flow over. And some of Freya's songs do work with Tamana. And there was a song that I originally chose for Tamana that wasn't soft or anything, but I was like, oh, I love the story. And then I realized it is a Freya song because it was Lily by, I don't know his name, the album was Dark Side and I've forgotten his name. It's fine. Alan Walker. Lily by Alan Walker, I've now realized is a Freya song. It's not a Tamana song. Like the innocence and stuff that I first viewed in Lily, that I was like, oh, this reminds me of Tamana. That's the only part of it that does. The rest of the story is kind of just Freya. So that's been fun. I've renamed characters in this draft because I had some names wrong and I had a lot of placeholder names that I'm trying to sort out now. I also have to put more characters in that are there for Tamana, because a lot of it in the first act revolves around Freya, and there's a couple that I put in place and I was kind of like, oh, I want to do something with this character. I love this idea. Like there's a mute blacksmith that I love the idea of in his story, but like him and Freya interacting never really worked. And then once Tamana became a thing, I was like, oh my god, she would love him so much because of his intelligence and his way of communicating, even though I can't communicate. Like, oh my god, that is her. That is like her bread and butter. And that's been really interesting. The other great thing is throughout this time I've worked through my world building with the kind of religion that's in there and gods and stuff, and really worked on the magic. I already had most of the magic system worked out, but I've kind of like been delving back into that, which is real fun, especially because I have one character that's grown up using her magic and one character that's just realized she has magic for a number of reasons. I'm not getting into it, it's part of the story, but she thought she was insane. It's that easy. Yeah, so it's just been like this fun roller coaster ride of working out the characters and writing it and like all of Freya is written now, all of it needs fixing. But I'm just like, that's where my writing's at this year so far. And I can't say anything else. What else do I want to say? I'm sure I had more issues, but I'll just talk about them in NaNoWriMo because everything applies to camp now. And they were my main issues. Like the first draft wasn't really that hard for me to write, especially because I was writing from one character's perspective for a large majority of it, or just writing fanfiction scenes. It is what it is. So have you guys been writing this year? How are you finding it? Have you ever been stupid and decided to add another perspective in after you've already done a zero draft and then you have to work on that? What were your problem solving skills in it? Because I would really like to know and I really need help. But I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.